Pada video kali ini, kita akan membahas video podcast terkenal antara Joe Rogan dengan Bob Lazar dan Jeremy Corbell di channel YouTube-nya. Di sini aku akan sedikit menjelaskan bagi kalian yang tidak tahu mengenai Bob Lazar, merupakan salah satu ilmuwan alumni MIT dan Caltech yang pernah bekerja di Laboratorium Nasional Los Alamos di New Mexico pada tahun 1980-an. Bob Lazar mengklaim dirinya pernah bekerja di S4 sebelah area 51 untuk merekayasa balik teknologi ekstraterestrial dan mencoba menduplikasinya dengan material yang tersedia di bumi. Penasaran? Mari kita bahas video podcast ini bersama-sama setelah yang berikut ini. Bob Lazar memulai karirnya sebagai peneliti di Lab Nasional Los Alamos di New Mexico. Dia direkrut oleh agen rahasia karena dirinya masuk halaman depan majalah Lab, sebab di mobilnya terdapat mesin jet. Singkat cerita, ketika Bob Lazar menerima pekerjaan yang ditawarkan kepadanya, dirinya mulai menyadari bahwa pekerjaan yang diambilnya sangat aneh, karena dirinya berhadapan dengan teknologi yang peradaban manusia saat itu belum mungkin bisa menciptakan loncatan teknologi sebesar itu.
But for people who don't know the story, let's give them the bullet points. You used to work at Area 51. And Area 51, you went like, huh?
Well, we want to be accurate.
Okay.
Area S4.
S4, okay.
It's about 15 miles south of Area 51.
Okay.
Before that, I had worked at Los Alamos
Right.
National Labs in New Mexico.
And you were involved in what kind of work?
Nuclear weapon development, physics. I mean, they do everything there. Well, the first inkling I had was when I came in. There's this facility that is at S4. It's in the side of a mountain. And normally we had pulled in with the bus and gone around the front through a normal double door. This time that I went in, there were hangar doors open. I went in through the hangar door, and in the hangar door was the disc, the flying saucer that I worked on. I saw it sitting there, and we walked by it. It had a little American flag stuck on the side, and I thought, oh my God, this finally explains all the flying saucer stories. This is just an advanced fighter, and this is fucking hilarious.
Right.
So I went by, I slid my hand alongside it. I got reprimanded immediately for touching the thing. And there was a guy, an armed guard, that followed us in and just said, keep your eyes forward and your hands at your side and just walk in the door. So that was the first time I had seen anything that was weird. And it was in the demonstration of the reactor working where it caught my attention to where this is technology that doesn't even exist. So, that was the first time I knew that this is really something different.
Pada tahun 1980-an, gravitasi secara teori dihasilkan oleh graviton dan bukanlah dianggap sebagai sebuah gelombang. Pada saat itu, Bob menyatakan bahwa gravitasi termasuk sebuah gelombang, dan itu dibuktikannya saat piring terbang yang dia kerjakan di proyek rahasia menghasilkan gelombang gravitasi. Baru kemudian pada tahun 2016, gelombang gravitasi pertama kali berhasil dideteksi oleh LIGO atau Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory akibat tabrakan dua buah lubang hitam, dan terbukti gravitasi termasuk salah satu gelombang.
Right, and remember, we can observe the effects of gravity, but we have no idea what it is. All we can do is observe it, and we can't make it. The only way you can make gravity is just put more mass together, and it's just a product of gravity. But if you have a machine that makes gravity, you can pretty much do anything. You can affect time, you can have force fields, all that stuff that's in science fiction becomes reality if you have a machine that can make gravity. And what we worked on in the desert was a machine that makes gravity. Well, you really have to look at the way the gravity wave comes out of the craft. There's the reactor's in the center, and there's a waveguide that goes up to the top. There's actually a small appendage that sticks out of the top of the craft, and it produces a heart-shaped gravitational distortion around the craft. Now, if the craft is sitting in the air and you walk underneath it and look up, you actually cannot see the craft. The light bends around it. You're bending gravity, bends light. It bends radio waves. It shouldn't be possible to communicate with a craft that has an envelope around it that's distorting all forms of energy.
Bob menyebut pernah melihat 9 piring terbang dengan bentuk yang berbeda-beda saat semua hangar di ekspor dibuka. Bahkan salah satunya ada bekas terkena tembakan meriam, atau mungkin sebuah tes untuk mengetahui apakah bahan yang melingkupi piring terbang bisa ditembus. Dirinya juga menyebut bahwa teman kerjanya Barry pernah bilang kalau salah satu piring terbang didapatkan dari penggalian arkeologi.
They had nine craft altogether. I only got hands-on with one of them, so I can't really say what how the others operated.
Did you see the other ones?
Yeah, at one time, and only one time, the bay doors that between the hangars were all open, and I could see all the way through.
And were they all exactly the same?
No, they were all different.
Different shapes?
Yeah,
But they were all from somewhere else.
yeah, absolutely. Oh, they looked completely different. One looked like I called it Jello mold, and it looked like a classic Jello mold with the rippled sides to it. One was a very flat disc, like like a straw hat or something like that. That was sitting up on its edge, and the thin part of it looked like a projectile had been fired through the edge of it. So I don't know if they were attempting to see if the metal could be penetrated, or if that's where the thing came from. Maybe it was shot down. But that was the only one where I saw there was, actual physical damage to it.
Bob menjelaskan jika piring terbang yang dia kerjakan di proyek menggunakan tenaga propulsi gelombang gravitasi. Dirinya juga menyebut kalau tenaga propulsi di piring terbangnya tidak menghasilkan panas, seperti teknologi yang pernah manusia ciptakan. Bob juga membicarakan sebuah unsur yang sangat penting agar pesawat bisa terbang, yakni elemen 115. Bahkan sebelum elemen 115 belum diakui keberadaannya pada saat itu.
This was a small reactor about the size of a hemisphere, about the size of a basketball, on a metal plate. And when it was running, it produced a gravitational field of its own. Now, this is something that we can't do. We can't produce any gravity. The only way we get gravity is from large quantities of mass. But there's no machine we can have that turns on that makes gravity. Like, you can turn on an electromagnet and it makes a magnetic field. We can't make a gravitational field. Anyway, this device was producing that. I mean, one of the first laws of thermodynamics, essentially any machine, any device that operates always makes extra heat. Nothing works at 100% efficient. Even the headphones you're wearing, anything that takes power, some of that power is going to be converted to heat, and it's just wasted. This didn't. We looked at, back then we had infrared cameras. They're different today, but back then you had to pour liquid nitrogen into the camera to cool the sensor down and get these infrared images you've seen. But it never got, no matter what the load was on the reactor, it never got above the ambient temperature, which is impossible. You're, pulling out huge amounts of power and nothing ever gets warm. Element 115, the fuel they had, was stable. In other words, it didn't decay. It wasn't emitting radioactivity. When they synthesized the 2 or 3 atoms of the 115, it did decay, and it was not a stable element. So they're kind of two different things. But this is kind of typical. Elements always have, or pretty much always have, stable isotopes and unstable isotopes. Like, I think cesium has 30 unstable isotopes to it. So, hydrogen, for example, you're familiar with hydrogen gas. It's stable. It's not radioactive. But there's also 2 other types of hydrogen, deuterium and tritium. And deuterium isn't radioactive. It's another stable isotope of hydrogen. But tritium is radioactive. Now, they're all hydrogen, but they just have different amounts of neutrons. So it's the same thing with other elements and element 115. Depending on the amount of neutrons it has, designates the isotope, but it's 115. They will continue to take or experiment and try and make 115 at different isotopes, and I'm sure eventually they'll come up with a stable version, but it's the stable version that has the properties that we're talking about. It's a very ominous feeling because first of all, everything is one color. It's like a dark pewter color, and there are no right angles anywhere. it's as if somebody took, I've said this before, somebody took a model and fashioned it out of wax and then heated it just for a short time so everything melted. Everything looks like it's fused together. Everything has a radius of curvature where two items meet. It's a really weird looking thing, but there was almost nothing other than a small foldable hatchway that looked recognizable. Everything was really unworldly, to pick a way to describe it.
So you get inside this thing, and it's designed for something that's much smaller than a human being.
Yeah, you can't really stand up till you get to the very center of it.
And how tall are you?
I'm 5'10".
And what do you think this was designed for?
I'd say something close to half my height.
Wow. So these little 3-foot tallish creatures.
Yeah, and the seats were small too. I mean, obviously it was made, for something small. But there was no, there's nothing else in there. There's just seats, the reactor, and some of the subcomponents. There's no control panels. There's no bathroom. There's no decorative components or artwork or anything that you would recognize or trim. I mean, it's just a very bare bones thing.
Bagian penting dari ini semua adalah dari mana teknologi ini berasal. Bob mengklaim dirinya pernah membaca sebuah dokumen saat briefing sebelum bekerja di S4 mengenai sebuah sistem bintang zeta reticuli, dan dirinya merasa sangat terkejut akan hal ini. Karena itu dia sangat bersemangat bekerja di proyek ini.
So there was some paperwork that indicated that this was from the Zeta Reticuli star system. Now, how they obtained that, I haven't the slightest idea. But it wasn't just from the Zeta Reticuli star system. It was what they called ZR3. So it was a third planet in that star system. So there was no other information about it other than that's supposedly where the craft came from. Now, is that true? I don't know. I have no way of verifying that. But that was printed in the same materials that referenced the reactor. Now, I looked that stuff up when I went home. And Zeta Reticuli is a binary star. Two stars that orbit one another, and it's only visible in the southern hemisphere, and it's about 30 some odd light years away. So that's literally all the information I have about that. I don't know how they found out it came from there.
When you read Zeta Reticuli, were you like, what in the fuck is this?
Well, reading all of the stuff, it was, what in the fuck is this?
You're like, why did I sign up for this? Like, what?
No, to me, this was cool. This was interesting. I said, I was just excited to be out in a secure area, in the middle of the desert. I said, this is awesome.
How old are you at the time?
I was in my 20s. Yeah, it could easily be. Now, believe it or not, I'm not into UFOs. I don't follow stories or,
Even after your experiences?
No, I'm fascinated with the technology, and it irks me like every night I go to sleep that, that it was my own doing, essentially, that prevented me from continuing on in the project. I mean, it's that to be on that cutting edge of technology is so alluring to me.
Right.
But by the same token, I don't really care that there's aliens or where they come from. I mean, the prize is the technology, and that's what I'm fascinated by. So I don't listen to UFO stories and that sort of thing.
Terdapat banyak sekali topik yang harus dibahas di video ini. Namun secara garis besar, aku sudah membuatkan simpulan podcast ini. Tentu saja jika kalian ingin informasi lebih detail mengenai topik ini, kalian bisa lihat langsung video podcast pada link di deskripsi dengan durasi video sekitar 2 jam. Jika kalian menyukai video ini, silahkan tinggalkan suka dan berlangganan channel ini untuk topik menarik lainnya. Sampai jumpa lagi.